Hello guys, now we are on the next game on the Attack on the Unweakened King series, and in this game it's between Spielman and Marozzi, played in Gothenburg in 1920. It's a Ruy Lopez Steinitz variation. So the game goes e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5 and d6 and d4, bishop to d7, knight c3, knight f6, bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6 and queen d3. Now e takes d4 and knight takes d4 and then bishop d7, knight c, bishop d7 and bishop g5 and bishop to e7, long castles, short castle, and f4, f4 and knight to e8, the engine tells to play h6, and after bishop h4, knight to h5, the engine recommends this, and after this the engine says these moves, but black player played knight e8 and after bishop takes, queen takes, and now knight to d5. After knight to d5, now queen to d8, and now g4, g4 by white, and now knight f6 by black. Knight f6, instead of knight f6 he could have played bishop takes g4. After rook dg1, rook to d2 could have been played. After bishop d7, then after bishop d7, rook g1 could have been played, and then knight to f6, and then knight to f5, bishop takes, and d takes. Then this is how the game could have gone, but bishop didn't take on g4. The advance of the g pawn hardly requires any calculation. The simple consideration that the capture of this pawn gives white an open g file is sufficient. The attack on that file is bound to be worth more than a pawn. So here actually the black player's plan, the white player's plan was, after bishop takes, now rook dg1, and then after bishop to d7, he could play f5, and after f6, and now knight to f4. or what the engine says. The engine says here if after f4 he could play rook h8, and after rook g2 now knight to f6 can be played, and then c4. So then but in the game the black player didn't take the pawn, he went for knight f6, then knight to f5. So here the g pawn is a good support for the white knight, and if the black knight takes the pawn on g5, then there will be an open file. So then after the knight takes, the black knight takes the knight on d5, and after queen takes d5, now bishop c6 and queen d4, now queen f6. Because here black surrenders his pawn formation, because he fears that if after f6 the continuation of white's attack could be like g5, and then rook hg1 is coming. So he went to exchange the queens, and after exchanging the pawn structure was compromised, and now the game went on knight g3, king h8, now rook he1 with a clear endgame superiority for white. So here white is easily winning, has a huge advantage. The game would have gone like this. And this. So this is how the game could have gone. So as you see, black is losing his pawns and his pawn structure, his pawns are isolated. So I hope you would have enjoyed this game. I'll be meeting you in the next game. Thank you all.